Buddhadhamma, November 27, 2025. 6.8 Common Misunderstandings about Nibbāna. Point A, attachment to the non-attachment. Point B, overestimation. And point C, happiness and readiness for happiness. 6.8 Common misunderstandings about Nibbāna. Attaching to the non-attachment. The origin of dukkha can be identified with two primary agents, avijja and tanha, ignorance and craving. Likewise, nirodha, the cessation of dukkha, can be identified with two essential qualities, vijja and vimutti, knowledge and deliverance. The former process may be described as avijja, leading to attachment, and the latter is vimutti, through vijja, through knowledge, so deliverance through knowledge. In the former process, the link which leads the birth, jati, to bhava, from birth to becoming, is upatthana, translated as grasping, clinging, or attachment. In the latter process, the link which leads out of the round of samsara vata, the round of rebirth, is Nibbāna, translated as disenchantment, dispassion, the end of craving and attachment. As the pair upatthana and Nibbāna are polar opposites. Upatthana stems indirectly from not knowing the true nature of things. This not knowing opens the door to craving, tanha, the wish to possess and consume things. Tanha, craving, leads to getting tied up and investigating in things being a certain way, which is upatthana. In contrast, Nibbāna springs from a thorough understanding of those things formerly attached to. One understands their faults and dangers, and one sees the harm of getting obsessed with them. This gives rise to disenchantment. One is no longer fascinated by these things and is willing to relinquish them. Disenchantment arises from knowing the true nature of things. This knowledge is called yatha bhutanana dasana in Pali. It is important to note that both the arising of disenchantment and the eradication of clinging are due to knowledge. With true understanding of things, Nibbāna arises and upatthana ceases automatically. It is a natural causal process, or a state that arises following causes and conditions. Yatha bhutanana dasana is the knowledge of the severance point, but it is not the final knowledge of vimutti nana dasana. It is the natural Nibbāna, flows that follows that arising yatha bhutanana dasana. Gautama's teachings that with the fading of avijja, knowledge arises and upatthana, clinging, ceases. For how much knowledge is necessary to end grasping is to be understood. One sometimes hears the injunction, don't be attached, or let go, or all that is necessary is non-clinging. As much quoted by Gautama Buddha on non-attachment, sape dhamma nalam apanivesaya, meaning nothing is worth adhering to, or nothing can be seized. Abhinivesa is a synonym for upatthana. The teaching is laudable, But one should bear in mind that non-attachment needs to arise correctly in line with the natural process. If it does not, one's practices may be incorrect and even harmful. The risk is that one attaches to non-attachment, which can have the same detrimental effects as upatana to anything else. Imagine that a beautifully wrapped bundle has been placed within a locked glass case. A man sees the bundle and is convinced that it contains something valuable. He is fixated on obtaining that object, but is unable to get it. Later, someone whom he respects tells him that there is nothing of value in that bundle and that coveting it is harmful. One part of the man wants to believe this advice and realizes the damaging effects of his actions. But on a deeper level, he's still convinced that the bundle contains a treasure. He is unable to sever his longing through willpower, although he tries to prove to others that he has let go. His outward behavior displays a disinterest for the bundle. But even if he were to loudly broadcast this, his heart is still bound. His mind is still bound. His desire is still bound. Moreover, in his attempt to show others that he does not care, he may behave oddly and inappropriately. Later, the contents of the bundles are revealed to the man, and he sees that they are indeed worthless. Knowing this clearly for himself, the hanker then ceases immediately. Even if it were tried to convince himself to the desire of the object, he would remain disinterested. His mind is prepared to engage fully with other things. The behavior above can be compared to that unawakened person whose desires and attachments are influenced by tanha, craving. They may have been told that their desired objects are essentially undesirable and that their attachment is potentially harmful. They may agree through reasoning that the desire and attachment is harmful and want to believe that the longed-for objects are of no value, but they do not yet truly see it this way. Deep down, the desire and attachment remains. They may seemingly be disinterested in those pleasurable things, but this disinterest or non-attachment is not genuine and is a form of posturing. They are simply conforming behavior to an idea of non-attachment. Their non-attachment is a form of attachment. Their actions are dictated by this attachment. This can result in disingenuous or erratic behavior. In contrast, when one understands the true nature of conditioned phenomenon, the specific conditions bring about inevitable results. The heart is delivered and grasping ceases on its own accord. One's behavior is then natural and uncontrived. Returning to the former example for a man who desires the bundle, his friend may explain the entire sequence of how the bundle and its worthless contents were prepared. Following the reasoning, the man may be convinced that the contents are indeed valueless. This firm conviction may have a strong bearing on his own thoughts and actions. Although he is not yet completely freed of desire, only a mile long it remains, quite different from his initial passion. This is similar to the knowledge and state of mind of a person who have achieved the first 3 stages of enlightenment. From the stream enterers to non-return, so from a sotapanna to an ananagami, those ranked between ordinary people and arihats. In this contrast, Gautama Buddha's words on knowing but not yet fully awakening, that is, having an insignificant understanding of causality and therefore not being yet utterly released. An anagami has abandoned sakaya ditti, but still remains some asamina and a fine residue of craving. He or she may have abandoned self-conceptions, but his latent sense of me and mine has not yet been purified. Examples from everyday life that reveal a person's true value or level of non-attachments are the emotions of worry and fear. Some people feel nervous, seemingly for no reason. Even scolding themselves for this feeling does not help. A person may be in a safe place with no cause for fear, but as soon as he hears the cry of a wild animal or a siren and involuntarily gets frightened, rational thought alone cannot uproot these emotions. One must get to the heart of the matter. Ordinary people without deep insight may ask if they should practice non-attachment. Because the recognition for the dangers of attachment is beneficial, they are advised to practice in this way. They should bear in mind, however, that they still abide on one level of attachment, and that it is detrimental to believe prematurely that they have attained true non-attachment. By acting judiciously and wisely, the harmful consequences of excessive and deceptive behavior are avoided. This virtuous conduct and self-discipline creates a foundation of genuine non-attachment in the future. Although attaching to the non-attachment is usually well-intentioned, there are those with ill intent who may argue that since all things are insubstantial and people are made up of component parts, no one exists in any real sense. Therefore, it is acceptable to harm others. This is simply an extreme form of attachment. They are selecting an aspect of truth to justify their own desires. If they were not in the same way obsessed with the victim and had no evil intent, why would they wish to cease the person harmed? Point B, overestimation. Most people are preoccupied by material concerns. When they are experiencing subtle, unfamiliar spiritual events, they are easily impressed. But because they lack the fundamental understanding of the workings of the mind, they are unable to distinguish between the different experiences and get confused. Even skilled practitioners can have this problem. An analytical or reflective ability goes a long way to prevent misunderstanding and misguided effort. People who are fascinated with miracles and supernatural tend to praise those with psychic powers. Psychic powers are those with siddhis, because they have reached the highest spiritual goal. Likewise, someone who is keen on a solitude develops the mind, has tasted the joy of seclusion, will often instill faith in others, even if he or she has not reached an exceptional states of mind. People who have attained the fruits of sincerity practice samatha. The jhanas, the concentrative absorption, will appear even more impressive. They themselves may mistake serenity for insight, or they may overestimate their achievements and believe to be enlightened. They may attain the joy of insight, vipassana sukha, which is technically classified as an impurity, upakilesa. They mistake this for Nibbāna. They may get carried away by a praise lavished by others. This is not to say that one should be suspicious or find fault, since it is suitable to respect those who are worthy. But one should know clearly what other people have to offer. This way, the rewards of the Dhamma practice for both practitioners and for their admirers would not lead to ill effects. They will avoid getting stuck in the extreme asceticism or another form of wrong practice. Point number 3, or C, happiness and readiness for happiness. Happiness is an essential ingredient for Dhamma practice. Buddhism encourages people to experience the different level of happiness. In the particular, the refined happiness independent of material things, which provides a great benefit to practice. Delight and sensual pleasure needs no encouraging on people to be preoccupied enough with this already. Buddhism does not promote attachment to any kind of happiness. and is more interested in cultivating a readiness in people to experience happiness than in the various states of happiness themselves. When this state of readiness is developed, a person can choose at will from those levels of happiness already established. This readiness itself, and an inherent form of happiness which surpasses all other happiness. For realized persons who have developed this readiness, no source of suffering remains, permitting them to experience all form of happiness without causing harm to themselves or others. This inherent happiness is one vital feature of Nibbāna.